You're listening to the Things of That Nature podcast. Coming to you from Denver, the Mile High City, is me, your host, Rockshana. I invite you to join me for truly honest, passionate, and fun talks that motivate, invigorate, and maybe inspire. When you're ready in the Mile High, the sky's the limit. Everything and anything goes. So let's start talking about things of that nature. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Things of That Nature podcast. I'm your host, Rockshana, and today I have for you what I'm going to consider a treat. And I only say it's a treat because I have been looking for someone that does this and in this profession for a little bit now, since my sleeping habits aren't the greatest. And I have found someone, and today we have Mimi Pettibone. I said it wrong, didn't I?
Well, I usually say pettibone, like pettibone, but lots of people say pettibone. It doesn't really matter.
Pettibone. There you go. Mimi Pettibone. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, well, okay, first let's get into about you before I blow and start asking you a million questions about what you do. So, tell me a little bit about you. Tell us all a little bit about you.
Well, I mean, that's such a vast question. Me as relates to dreams, or me?
You as in you.
Oh boy. Oh my gosh.
Hobbies, ice cream, the fun stuff.
Well, see, I live in Seattle, Washington, and I've always been a very creative person. But I also love learning things. And so I have this just endless desire to learn about people and the mind and consciousness and dreams. And I also love creating, which is why I created a podcast about dreams. And I also have a little card deck that I created that has artwork, and then I didn't do the artwork, but it's beautiful vintage art, and then I have little sayings that are just little things that I've collected over the years that have helped me. So I'm all about personal growth, self-help, but also creative self-expression.
I like creative.
Yeah. And I think we're both dancers, so we can relate there.
Yes, the creativity just keeps running and running at any time of the day.
Yes, it's true.
Yay, dancer finding dancers.
I don't do it professionally anymore, but I used to.
What styles?
I mostly did Middle Eastern dancing. So I studied about every kind of class I could get my hands on, but I was always drawn more towards like any kind of dancing that uses more your torso. So Middle Eastern is belly dancing and your hips and your torso and really moving your body. And I always loved the music. I think it's that the draw I have towards anything mystical. But I also studied Hawaiian and classical Indian dancing and African and some ballet and modern. I really did not like modern, but it just didn't resonate with me. But anything where, especially because Western dance tends to not use your torso as much. It's more stiff and about the arms and legs. But Eastern dance is really coming from deep inside of you. And you're like moving that torso really has to come from your core. And I mean, ballet uses core muscles, but like I said, it's more about external movement. So that's just always the kind of thing I've been drawn to. In fact, it was in college when I first started learning about dreams that some friends and I were going somewhere, and two of us were already in the car, and we picked up a third friend. And she had this coin headdress on and some kind of jingly scarves. And I was like, oh my God, where did you get that? What is, tell me. And she said, oh, I just came from my belly dancing class. And I was like, what? There's a class in that? I had to sign up. And so I did, and I did it for many years, and I performed, and I also did my own creative alternative stuff with it. So in addition to the kind of what you picture normally, I also did things with black lights and danced to like Led Zeppelin music or Australian Aboriginal music.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
It was. I had to dance with torches, and I also did this. I had a colorful costume with black lights, but then I did this. A friend had a boat. It wasn't a big boat. It was like a 1940s, boat with a flat roof. And he said, I want you to dance on the roof of my boat on the 4th of July. And so, and I had these big 4-foot shop lights with 2 black lights in them each. And so I brought those and I wore this long white gown and I made those, it's like a veil, like a half circle of kind of semi-sheer fabric. And you put a stick in the end that you hold in your hands. So it looks like you have these big, huge wings and you kind of move them around like Loie Fuller in the, like turn of the century did that kind of thing. Like, I think that was even pre-vaudeville days. And so I brought my black lights. So all my fabric was white and I had this white feathered mask. And I didn't know it at the time, but my friend also got a fog machine and a guy who did visual projections for a museum. And they projected these colorful slideshows onto my whole being, my costume and the veils that I was holding. And we would float around the water at night and all the other boats, because 4th of July in Seattle is big for boats being out on the water because they let the fireworks off on the water. And so we would take the boat out to go watch them. But the whole way there, I'd be doing this performance thing. Anyway, that's one of my things that I've done. And I always say when I die, I'm going to float over the lake in a white dress.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I now want to I love fireworks. 4th of July, I just love it. So now I've just added Seattle and 4th of July to my list of must needs to do.
Yeah, I don't know what it'll be like this year, but yeah, most years, at least being on a boat, I always thought was the best to see it. But now we've had a lot of years where it's rainy and cloudy and the 4th of July is not what you would hope it would be. But more recent years, it has been more nice weather.
So so of course, you hear Seattle, it's rainy, it's wet. I'm sure you experienced it living there.
Yeah.
And I want to say just about 2 years ago now, in October, I went to Seattle. Me and one of my girlfriends, we took a trip out there. She wanted to see the Boeing and the planes.
Okay.
And it was beautiful. It didn't rain at all.
What month of the year were you here?
We were in October.
Oh, yeah. Actually, October's kind of like the last bit of summer. Like places I've lived where I need an air conditioner, I need it through Halloween, and then all of a sudden it changes.
Oh, I see. So we went at the perfect time. There you go.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like 10 years ago, it was a completely different city, much more like alternative people, lots and lots and lots of artists, lots of creative people in certain neighborhoods that are just so creative. And in especially the last like 6 to 8 years, we've had a population explosion because of Amazon and Google and all the tech companies, Microsoft. And I mean, Microsoft has been here since they started, but obviously tech has exploded. So it's created a real imbalance in the income levels because the tech workers make a lot more money than artists usually. And that drove housing prices up, and then traffic got really bad. And, this whole quarantine, I'm almost grateful for it because I haven't seen this little traffic since I can remember, really.
So with dance creative, and then what led you to the dream world?
Yeah, actually, there's always been an overlap. I started my professional interest, I guess you could say, in both of them at the same time. Though ever since I was little, I would say this stuff is a thread that goes through my life, because when I was about 4 years old, which I think is probably about as old as you can be before you actually declare what you want to dress up as for Halloween, I knew that I wanted to wear makeup and jewelry. And so I said I wanted to be a gypsy. Now, I know that term, they say it's not politically correct these days, but bear in mind, when I was little, it wasn't incorrect. And to me, it was this mystical thing that you get to wear jewelry and makeup. And I don't know if I consciously even was aware of the mystical factor, but when I look back, I thought, most little girls, if they want to wear makeup and jewelry, they ask to be a princess, not a gypsy. And for
I was one of those.
Were you? Wait,
I
which
s-
one? Princess or
oh, Jasmine. I wanted to be Jasmine like every
Oh,
year.
oh, well, see, she's mystical too.
Oh,
Um,
oh, that's right.
she's a princess, but she's mystical. She's got that Eastern thing going on.
Yes.
And when I was little, we didn't have a story about Princess Jasmine in the kind of Disney fairy tales. But so I asked to be a gypsy, and then I realized I asked that for 4 years in a row. And then even when I was little, I felt like dreams must mean something, but I had no idea what, and it just wasn't a thing that was talked about or that I had any access to information about. So when I was in college, when I was, of course, the roommate that always said, "You guys, I have to tell you this dream I had," and I'd go on and on with all the details. And so one of my roommates told me there was a dream group that was offered as an extracurricular activity through the counseling center. And I was like, oh my God, where do I sign up? And around the same time, that friend got in the car with her little coin headdress. And I was like, where do I sign up for belly dancing? So that there's just always been this draw towards anything that feels like there's some kind of mystical nature to it for me, I guess.
Oh, so it's always been around. It's always full circle, come and interact in your life. I like that. It's like one of those things where if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and you'll see it. It'll come around.
Right. And it's one of both of those were things that I felt like I have to do this no matter what. And neither one of them are conventional career paths. You don't see a degree offered at a university for those things, and you don't see a job advertised for it, either one of those. So neither one of them are traditional career paths, especially in terms of how do you make a lot of money doing this, but they are things that I felt like I have to do this. And so if it meant doing other things along the way, I would do that. And at times I didn't have to, and other times I did, but no matter what, I knew I had to do these things.
That is how I feel about dance. You've hit it right on the notch.
Uh-huh. It's a calling.
Yes.
That's when you know you have a calling, when you have that feeling.
Where no matter what's going on, this is what I'm going to do. Whether I have to do something along with it or do it by itself, but I will be happy and satisfied if this is all I do for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
So when you interpret dreams, like what is that process for you? How does that process like feel speaking to someone else about their dream?
Well, how it feels to me or how it works technically might be two different questions, because I do have a lot of techniques that I've learned and sort of acquired along the way for asking people certain types of questions. My main intention is to facilitate for the dreamer, what does this mean to them, rather than me saying, here's what your dream means, because I'm the expert. Even though I do have a fair amount of knowledge about it, I will save any of that till the end, or even save my intuitive hits or my projections. But what it feels like when I'm doing it is maybe it's the dance thing, being a kinesthetic person. I'm also very auditory, but I think, some people are mostly visual or mostly kinesthetic. I took a class in something called NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, which works a lot with all the senses, the sensory modalities. And when we kind of tested each other, I was all of them, kind of equally auditory, kinesthetic, visual. But anyway, but when I'm working with a client, my body is actually my guide, because I will get feelings in my body that direct me. I'm asking them this question, and then they're going down this path, and then something in my body goes, that's not the right direction. Not based on necessarily what they're saying, unless it's like they're going on a tangent or not able to access kind of a deeper level. But really, I might also just get an intuitive hit of like, well, ask them this question. And I'm like, what? My logical mind goes, that's never something you've been taught to ask somebody, and that doesn't really logically make any sense. Why would you ask that? But I've learned that those questions or thoughts are the most relevant ones to share. So when I work with a client, it's a combination of my skills and training, but also my intuition guiding me on what direction to go with this session.
Oh, that's cool. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So I, for a little bit, a friend of mine was going, was like tarot card reading.
Mm-hmm.